and welcome. The last video ended with a call to stand firm. But how to do this when confronted by armed police, or worse, bureaucrats who think they've suddenly been granted powers that not even police have hitherto possessed? We'll be covering that question in this talk. But first, another technical issue needs clarification. In the last talk, I spoke of the common law being codified under King Alfred the Great. This was a misuse of the term codified, for which I apologise and now rectify. The term codified, when speaking of a body of laws, refers to them being set down in a general classification, as for example, the body of what we know as statute law under the legalese system. The common law in Alfred's time was already a matter of universal agreement, being based first upon such concepts as the Ten Commandments, and later, and even better, the Golden Rule. Everyone who has a functioning conscience knows of these laws, as they stem from common morality and experience of the world, not a written down set of rules. What happened during Alfred's time was that the method of administering and safeguarding these common laws was formulated, as for example the concept of trial by jury by one's peers, and the withholding of summary justice until such due process had occurred. This is why Magna Carta was universally accepted, being in accordance with principles laid down centuries before. Marcus Aurelius, the former Roman emperor, we will recall, had stated about 1,000 years before Magna Carta that the more laws a society has, the more corrupt it will be. Why is this? Because anything that is written down in a codified form is amenable to argument. What do the words really mean? One can sit in a public gallery of a court case and hear lawyers bantering back and forth about the meanings of words, and sometimes the entire outcome of a case can hang on whose interpretation of a single word holds sway in that courtroom. A notorious example of such occurred in recent memory, when the High Court was asked to rule on the constitutional validity of state premiers closing their borders to Australians from other states during the so-called COVID-19 pandemic. Section 92 of the defunct Australian Constitution states categorically that trade and intercourse between the states shall be absolutely free, unquote. The High Court eventually produced a ruling which redefined absolutely to mean not absolutely. Given that this is an irrelevant side issue because of Article 61, it simply illustrates the point that legalism opens the door to all manner of chicanery and abuse of process. What Magna Carta and constitutional law provides is the opportunity for the people to regulate and control the government via trial by jury, so that it remains a service provided for their benefit, not a system of control imposed from without by people or groups who may well have goals inimical to a peaceful, stable society. It suits people with corrupt designs to have masses of codified rules about which endless arguments may ensue, and an ever more tangled web of restraints accrue. A person acting from morality, however, needs no rules to tell them how to behave. It is clear from their understanding of the world and their fellow humans what is the appropriate action to take in virtually any situation. This is the great strength of common law and the terrible weakness and danger of legalism. It's why those traitors seeking to subvert and destroy the Constitution must resort to deception to achieve their aims. What sane person would voluntarily surrender their own and their children's rights and freedoms on the grounds that it was for the good of everyone else bar themselves? Such a state of submission can only be achieved through deceiving the victims that their own value as a human is somehow less than that of others of the community. For if one person cannot possess the right to enslave another, how can such a right exist in a group? The size of the group is irrelevant. If each person's right to subjugate another person is 0, 100 zeros or 100 million zeros still equals 0. That is why McGowan's unlawful legislation granting powers to police or unelected bureaucrats has absolutely no validity whatever. It's one of the maxims in law recently mentioned a few videos ago that, quote, a person cannot give to another that which they do not have, unquote. McGowan doesn't have any lawful power to invade people's homes, vehicles, or any other properties himself. So even were he illegitimately elected, which he is not, he couldn't lawfully grant that power to anyone else. People can only be deceived into thinking he has that power by tricking them with some contrived set of circumstances into nullifying their own innate value of themselves. It's just a trick, but unfortunately, in a society where people have had several generations of miseducation, deliberately sabotaging their ability to think critically, there are too many who can't reason their way out of the trap. Nevertheless, there is a growing number who are starting to see what's wrong, and when enough people become aware of Article 61 and its implications, the collapse of this philosophical house of cards will rapidly accelerate. How can we assist this process? Here is a short video showing how almost anyone can seriously hamper the actions of these traitors and their hired thugs in pushing such evil designs as McGowan's misnamed laws.
Identify yourself. From where?
052 police station.
So that's
exactly right. What's your name, sir?
what's your name?
And you're a sovereign citizen, sir, are you?
So you making accusations, are you?
No, I'm not making accusations. I'm here to serve some court documents.
So let me just let's just see if you're standing under your oath of office of constable today.
Pardon me?
Are you standing under your oath of office of constable?
Which is what?
You don't know what that is? Are you a public servant?
Of course I'm a public servant.
Okay, so a public servant needs to stand under the oath of office of constable. Is that you?
If
Are you standing under your oath of office of constable?
I am, yes.
You are? Perfect. Let's see. We're about to find out.
Happy
Here we
days.
go.
Happy
Here we
days.
go. Where are you going? Stay here.
I'm not here to answer any of your questions.
No, you're not going to answer it. You're actually going to be on camera.
What's that?
Walking away,
Thank you.
walking away, proving you're not an office, a holder of constable, that you're actually a private
Sovereign
corporate
citizen, sir.
policy enforcement agent.
We'll get these served in other courts.
I must caution you where I stand under Article 6. Where are you going?
It would be a good idea to watch this several times until what actually happens here sinks in. Let's discuss it. It's often said that knowledge is power, but that is only true if the knowledge is applied. Sitting on a shelf in a book or languishing in the back of someone's mind while they fritter away opportunities for its use, knowledge avails a person nothing. What we see here is the application of knowledge that a typical modern-day police officer has no authority to act as a constable if they have instead opted to perform as a private corporation policy enforcer. Just like the magistrate or judge in one of the fake courts, who cannot simultaneously function under an oath of public office and an oath to the private bar guild, the officer shown here was caught on the horns of a dilemma. Does he deliberately avoid the question of whether he is operating under his oath as a constable, the almost universal choice, or does he claim that he is and run the risk of being immediately exposed as an imposter, as happened here? For if he was indeed operating under the constable's oath, why did he not proceed to complete his task? He knew that he either wouldn't be able to recite his constable's oath, which was the next logical question, or that it would be quickly shown that he was working for a registered corporation and thus could not simultaneously be representing the Crown. His only option was to beat a hasty retreat and renege on his earlier commitment that he wasn't making any accusations about his questioner being a sovereign citizen. The latter is an oxymoronic term bandied about by these fake agents to denote someone they wish to label as a rebellious, seditious or belligerent type, who they may claim justifiably needs to be assaulted in some way. The term is ludicrous because every person is sovereign in the sense that they have dominion over their own person and property, whereas a citizen is someone who belongs legally to a country, owes allegiance to it, is granted rights because of such ties, and is consequently not sovereign in the full and true sense. We note in this exchange that the questioner doesn't answer the officer's question on this point on either occasion. Instead, he sticks to his point of requiring the officer to demonstrate the source of his authority. He makes that the first hurdle that the officer must get over if he is to proceed with his stated goal, in this case, serving some court documents. The officer is clearly uncomfortable about being asked if he is acting under his constable's oath. But when asked instead if he is a public servant, his relief is evident, and he eagerly concurs. The trap is then sprung when it's pointed out that public servants have to operate under an oath of office, which in his case is that of constable, and he, to his instant regret, agrees that he is. He immediately knows the game is up and turns it away, trying to obscure the mistake by tossing out the red herring of the sovereign citizen accusation again. But the game is lost and the officer beats a hasty retreat. Of course, not every exchange ends like this, and the officers may make threats, offend the law in some way by making an unlawful arrest or detaining their victim without lawful cause, but the likelihood of these things happening is reduced if we can remain calm and stick to our guns. It helps to carry a copy of the caution card, which we can either recite or read to remind them that they are answerable for their actions, and that we may pursue them in a tort if they persist in breaking the law. The key points to remember are: 1. Always start recording the exchange before speaking. 2. Always establish the officer's identity, name, rank, badge number, station they operate from, etc. 3. Always ask if they are standing under their oath of constable, at least 3 times, and keep asking. If they won't disclose their standing, there is no lawful reason to answer any of their questions. 4. If they won't confirm constable status, try the "Are you a public servant?" gambit. 5. If they insist on quoting acts and statutes, go to the caution card. 6. If they make you feel unsafe, you can tell them that and insist that they summon a superior officer and wait until that officer arrives. 7. We do not have to answer questions, as police have no jurisdiction to engage with us unless they believe a crime has been committed or is about to be committed. 8. Remember, the one asking the questions controls the interview. 9. Don't engage in joinder, where arguments touching on common law are brought into play. There is nothing long-term to gain by it, and if it ends with a court appearance, it is unlikely to end well. 10. Stick to Article 61. There are serious threats contained in this new legislation, but that simply means we must become firmer in our resolve to withstand lawlessness and protect the rights of our children and grandchildren. There is growing resistance to this corporate treachery from many different sources. Only a few days ago, unconfirmed reports emerged that the Australian Fraternity of Trade Unionists has contacted the president of the Australian Bar Association and informed him that the fraternity is making moves to advise all of their members to entirely turn their backs upon the Australian legal system and all of its practitioners because of the rampant corruption, which is now openly visible and causing great damage to the community. They are going to encourage hundreds of thousands of other trade unionists around Australia to join them in this campaign of non-cooperation with the goal of bringing the corrupt system down. We'll be seeking more information on this and other moves which may be afoot. For too long, these criminal elements have had the upper hand by banding together and making everyday Australians feel isolated and helpless. It's time now to unite, and the best way to facilitate that is to stand up and be seen, so that others may be encouraged to join the fight.